XRP Army, they are lying to you guys straight through their teeth, and it's unbelievable that the Fed, I believe in my opinion anyways, have just been able to get away with this for as long as they have. It's unbelievable. I want to start by playing you guys a clip here from Jerome Powell back on May 4th, 2024, which is known as the day that the Fed lost control. Listen very closely because this is insane.
In addition, I would say, most forecasters, including our forecasting, was that that last year's level of growth was very high, 3.4% in, I guess, the fourth quarter, and probably not going to be sustained and would come down. But that would be our forecast. That wouldn't be stagflation. That would still be to a very healthy level of growth. And of course, with inflation, we will return inflation to 2%, and that won't be. So I don't see the stag or the inflation, actually.
So Jerome Powell here says, I don't see the stag or the inflation. Now, 18 months later, both of those things were indeed true. Inflation is still at 3%, and the labor market is at its weakest level since the pandemic. And you might be wondering what any of this has to do with XRP. Well, this XRP bull run was supposed to be so much bigger than it was. We were supposed to see XRP hit much higher prices because the Fed was supposed to lower rates. The data was completely supporting the fact that we needed to lower rates literally last year. But the Fed waited and waited and waited until the end of the year, basically this year, to really start lowering rates in a meaningful way. And they're only stopping QT December 1st here, which was just a few days ago. And when we look at the actual employment numbers, it's insane. I mean, we should have had trillions of dollars more in liquidity entering the US markets. I mean, you look at the EU Union, you look at China, you look at the UK, these countries had actually been lowering rates very aggressively during a period of time when the United States was just basically holding, putting their hands under their rear end and just doing absolutely nothing. And this is completely because of the messaging that Jerome Powell had here. I mean, look at this downtrend in the job numbers. I mean, if you look at 2024, the numbers are very clear. I mean, we were seeing employment numbers continuously going on a massive decline. And sure enough, that trend continued because we did not get rate cuts. These are the numbers that we're looking at today. We're actually losing jobs now. And this is why the Fed is forced to cut rates now. They're waiting until unemployment numbers get so bad that jobs are continuously being lost every single month before they actually decide to do anything. This is, frankly, This is reactive and not proactive. I think that the Fed should always be proactive, and that's precisely why China and the EU, from a employment standpoint, have been doing substantially better in a number of different countries than, of course, the United States of America. Now, when we look at ETFs, though, there is something pretty interesting happening. The total ETF held net assets is now almost $1 billion for XRP. It's massively outperforming the Solana ETFs, which is a really good sign, especially considering the current state of the market. When the Solana spot ETFs were initially launched, I want to remind you guys that the markets were a lot more bullish. Everything was a lot higher in terms of price point. There was a lot more available liquidity at that moment in time. Quantitative tightening hadn't been going on for as long as it had now. And so when we do get a reversal in quantitative easing and money printing going online and that liquidity being injected, there's not a doubt in my mind that XRP is going to be one of the most massive disproportionate gainers in that. And so this is precisely why we need to be paying attention to these numbers right now, because the Fed cannot deny negative job growth. Of course, the unemployment levels rising as they are. They're going to have to continue to cut rates. They're going to eventually have to start quantitative easing in order to stimulate the economy. And we all know what this means for XRP, right? And we all should know what this also means for XRP ETFs. Another really important piece of this puzzle is Ripple's recent acquisition of GTreasury, which is a treasury company, a corporate treasury management software provider. And they acquired it for $1 billion. Now, to talk about why this is so big for XRP. Well, GTreasury is a global trade leader in treasury management systems, providing software solutions that help corporations manage their financial operations efficiently, of course, based on what they've provided. Essentially, what they do is they provide cash visibility and forecasting, risk management, payments and liquidity optimization, debt and investment management, and comprehensive connectivity. Now, how does this help XRP now that Ripple's acquired it? Well, this is going to greatly increase the utility for XRP, specifically when it comes to corporate treasuries. GTreasury's expertise in treasury management, now integrated with Ripple's digital asset infrastructure, allows corporations to use blockchain-powered solutions for real-time cross-border payments and liquidity management, okay? GTreasury already has thousands of different institutional clients, and they are responsible for a ton of cross-border payments. And so Ripple making this acquisition is a massive move forward. XRP is specifically designed as a bridge currency. We should all know that. And this just allows XRP to fill this void, to start eating into the market share here. This is why Ripple is strategically acquiring GTreasury and Hidden Road and all of these other big names in the space. If you can't beat them, acquire them. That is essentially what the Ripple team is doing here. You know, these companies refused to, work with us. And so now we're just going to buy them all up until we literally are the competition. And this is going to be really tough for Swift to compete with. You see here, Ripple's acquisition of GTreasury could significantly enhance XRP's utility and adoption by integrating it into corporate treasury operations, potentially driving demand and reducing the circulating supply of XRP. While short-term price gains are uncertain due to market volatility, the long-term outlook is bullish if Ripple executes its vision of a unified digital asset platform. Keep an eye out for the ETF inflows. This is a really big part of the puzzle. The more XRP that is taken out of the circulating supply and used for cross-border payments, liquidity, or ETFs, whatever, the better for us, guys. We want to get the total circulating supply of XRP to be so low that it's going to take a very minuscule amount of volume to cause a massive amount of price action. If you guys were wondering why XRP absolutely exploded in price back in 2017, and also in part in December and November and January, recently in the last year, it was simply because of a supply shock dynamic. There was a lot of demand and a low amount of supply. So every single update that we get in this regard that lowers the supply and increases the demand of XRP is something you need to pay attention to, especially when the Fed is forced into a position of quantitative easing. And in theory, essentially what this is going to do is put more liquidity, more money in the hands of consumers to buy XRP and Bitcoin and Ethereum as well. So this is why we got to look today, because XRP is on a downtrend. And listen, there's a very high likelihood that XRP even goes down a little bit further from the price point that it's at today. But if you are one of the few people that consistently are able to dollar cost average in and buy these dips when other people are panicking, well, you're going to be monumentally rewarded in the event that everything comes to fruition the way that I think it is. And listen, I don't think you're going to have a long runway. I think maybe 6 months at the most to be able to buy these dips. That's my honest point of view. That's exactly how I'm taking advantage of this. Is exactly how I made all my money during the last bear market and bull run. That's what I'm going to be doing this time around as well. So do with this what you will. What you do is completely up to you. Nothing I say is financial advice, but this is how I'm looking at the markets right now, and I am extremely bullish, guys. If you want to see exactly every single move that I'm making and when I'm making it, you're going to want to join my Discord. Link is down below. I'll see you guys in there. Much love. Peace out.